In a true sense it is. But your version of reality is not the real reality. Because none of us sees the world the way that it really is. We see the world the way that we really are. That's inspired by the things that we've heard, seen, our experiences, our influences. And this is one of the reasons that we have to be very careful and guard our minds against the influences that we take in. Because the influences that we take in form our version of reality. And they either bring us closer to real reality, or they drive us farther and farther away from the real reality. In other words, some of us are living in a reality that's somewhat close to real reality. And some of us, because of the things that we've taken in, are living in a reality that's way far off from actual reality. Now, if I come along and tell you, hey, I hate you, and I want the absolute worst for you, so let me tell you something that will take you away from reality and get you to believe things. Because if I can get you to believe absurdities, I can get you to commit atrocities. Don't miss that. If I can get you to believe absurdities, I can get you to commit atrocities. So if I want you to commit atrocities, if I want to use you, I have a vested interest in getting you away from reality. So the devil can be referred to in lots of interesting ways. Lovely is a weird one to ascribe to the devil. Now, is he talking about the literal devil? Yeah. How do you know? What's that? Yeah, it's capitalized. So he's referring to it by a proper name. But having said that, there's also something there about personifying evil. So the devil is a personification of evil. And so in other words, it's not, personification is when we take an inhuman thing and we make it into a human by giving it human characteristics or a proper human name. So in this case, he is talking about the devil. From what we know about the devil, what character traits is the devil supposed to have? Evil. Yeah, interestingly enough, there's one overarching characteristic of the devil. I guess there's one character trait, and then there's one characteristic or one behavior that seems to most identify the devil as the devil. Yeah.
He's a liar.
Exactly. He's a liar. He's a liar. And that's really important, by the way. That is really, really important. When you look at every major religion, if they have it, in this case, obviously he's talking about the Judeo-Christian devil, but every religion, when they have the bad gods or the devils, that's always their characteristic. They lie. And it's worth kind of asking ourselves, well, why is it that all of these major world religions, all of these cultures around the world throughout time, they have the number one expression of sin and wickedness as being lying? And I've told you why. Anybody remember? What is it that lying does?
King of the Jungle.
What's that?
He's a king. I don't know.
Yeah. Lying takes, let's say that this is the time.
Oh, I heard lion.
Yeah. No, lying.
Lying.
If this is, reality, let's say this line represents reality. When you lie to a person, you trick them into believing an alternate version of reality. So that they're no longer living in actual reality. They're living in a fiction that you have created. What is it that makes God God? God creates reality. God creates. This is kind of his archetypal characteristic. Yeah, and then the devil destroys. So these are the things that juxtapose. What is God supposed to be? God tells the truth. Why? Because whatever God says is reality. Does anybody know, for example, in the Bible, how does God create the universe? Does anybody know in the Bible, how does God create the universe? How does it describe it? He just says it. He speaks it into existence. Yeah. And you see that in Genesis, the first book of the Bible. And then if you're a Christian, later on you see it in the book of John. He refers to it again as the creation of the world. He says, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So God is identified is connected to the Word, speaking things into existence, speaking truth. And it's no surprise that when Jesus stands before Pilate, Jesus essentially refers to the truth, and says, "You'll know the truth." And Pilate is in a very Roman way, asks him, what is truth? And we see this, today when people are trying to confuse you. I think I was telling you guys before, like, I have a friend who works at a museum, and people the patrons who come through will ask him sometimes, are you an artist? And he'll ask that question. Well, it depends. What do you consider to be art? Yeah, that's that person who tries really hard to confuse things. Like, I mean, you know that person. I'm sure everybody knows a person who, when you say something really, really obvious, like, it's warm outside. Well, what do you consider to be warm? Well, I feel right now, I consider that to be warm. Yeah, but how many degrees is warm? Oh, forget it, man. It's an effort to try to, like, stymie the language to make things more complicated than it has to be. If somebody asks you if you're an artist, I mean, it's a pretty straightforward question. His thing is that he does martial arts, so his thing is, what do you consider martial arts to be in art? And then what kind of conversation does that usually inspire with the people who are there? Almost none. Almost none. In his mind, it's because they haven't really thought about what art is. But in reality, it's because they have, and they're not interested in having a third-grade conversation like that. And so what the devil does, he comes along and he lies. And we saw it, I was talking last week about the Adam and Eve story, and you see it right off the bat. First thing he does is he kind of manipulates the language. He says, so God said you can eat of any tree, huh? Well, no, what kind of a lie is that? That's a lie of omission. In other words, that's when you leave information out that you know is relevant. If I were to ask you, where'd you go yesterday? And let's say that you went to the mall and you shoplifted. And so you say, oh, I went to school, and then afterwards I went over to the gas station to get something to drink, and then I went to work afterwards, and then I went home. Well, why did you leave out the part about going to the mall? Sometimes we leave that stuff out because we don't want someone to know about that. That's a lie of omission. That isn't like you forgot to mention it, or you genuinely didn't think it was important. You leave something out that you know is important. So God said you can eat of any tree, right? And Eve says, no, that's not what I said. That's not what God said. God said you can eat of any tree except for that one. It's a lie of omission. So if we ever ask that question, like, is leaving out information a lie? We know that it is. Intuitively, we know that it is. Otherwise, we wouldn't be asking that question. We're looking for a rationalization. So the first thing the devil does is he omits information. Then after that, he says, well, did God really say this was true? And at that point, it's questioning. And when I'm writing questioning, understand what I mean by that. Things should be questioned, but what I mean by questioning is that when you're doing it in order to confuse. So you're questioning to confuse, not to clarify. We should question things if we want to clarify. But when we have the intention of confusing people, then that's a problem. It's just like, well, it depends. What do you consider to be art? That's just questioning to confuse. You're not really trying to get clarification. Some people might, like if you're sitting in your room and you're like, what is art? Okay, you're trying to clarify. But when you're using it as a retort to somebody, you're trying to confuse. So lying is omitting. Lying is trying to, because this is the heart of lying. It's trying to manipulate. It's trying to change the nature of reality. And then finally we have, of course, denial. God, I'm sorry. Well, I guess we'll just say manipulation. Straight manipulation. In other words, manipulation. Okay, but here's why God said that. Because he knows that when you do it, you're going to know good from evil. And what's interesting is that in that case here, the devil doesn't tell an untruth there. He just puts it in a context that he knows is going to confuse people. In other words, that's like the one stage in this process where he doesn't tell a lie. Is it true that when they eat of that fruit that they're going to know good from evil? Yeah, it is true. It is true. But he also knows that they're going to understand it differently from how it's actually intended, what's really meant by that. It's kind of like if I said to you guys, we once had a teacher here who was telling the students, I hate you, I hope you all die.
Well.
Yeah, terrible thing. And then, let's say when the APs comes in and asks you guys a question, hey, has God ever said anything like that was offensive? And someone raises their hand and goes, yeah, he told us that I hate you all and I hope you all die. Did I say that?
No.
No, I did.
Oh, yeah.
I did it, but I said it quoting somebody else. I didn't say it to you. I said it as, telling you somebody else said this thing. That's kind of that same process there. It's true that I said it, but it isn't true that I was saying it to you from myself. I was quoting somebody else. So when we ask, these are all designed to get at one thing, which is to change these versions of reality, to take us off of the path of what's really real and to create an alternate reality that we can get people to live off of. Now that's frightening if you really genuinely think about it, because that means that the things that you believe, the things that you think, which of course are inspired by the things that you hear, are the things that form your version of reality. And it's important to understand when we say that thing like, it's your version of reality. In a true sense it is. But your version of reality is not the real reality. Because none of us sees the world the way that it really is. We see the world the way that we really are. And that's inspired by the things that we've heard, seen, our experiences, our influences. And this is one of the reasons that we have to be very careful and guard our minds against the influences that we take in. Because the influences that we take in form our version of reality. And they either bring us closer to a real reality, or they drive us farther and farther away from the real reality. In other words, some of us are living in a reality that's somewhat close to real reality. And some of us, because of the things that we've taken in, are living in a reality that's way far off from actual reality. So we're not really living in a reality, we're living in a version of reality. And this is the thing that we would say that the devil wants to do, take you as far away from real reality as possible. Now again, he has a personal pronoun here. He has a proper pronoun here, capital D for devil. But it doesn't have to just be like a real devil. We can think of this as we're saying metaphorically. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not. Think about the influences that seep into your mind. Now, if I come along and tell you, hey, I hate you, and I want the absolute worst for you. So let me tell you something that will take you away from reality and get you to believe things. Because if I can get you to believe absurdities, I can get you to commit atrocities. Don't miss that. If I can get you to believe absurdities, I can get you to commit atrocities. So if I want you to commit atrocities, if I want to use you, I have a vested interest in getting you away from reality. And so, but the best thing, if I want to accomplish that, the best thing I can do is not tell you how much I hate you. I can convince you that this hatred that I have towards you doesn't really exist. No, I want the best for you. No, I really love you, and I really, really want to see the best in you. I'm sure you all have people in your life like that. You love family members, you love your friends, even if they don't behave that way towards you. And then some of you are loved by friends and family members, and you have no care for them. Sometimes some of you, I'm sure, are in the complete opposite role there. But I have to be clear about who this person is. Otherwise, the opportunity that they're waiting for is going to appear. You have to guard yourself against that. You have to guard yourself against the devils of life. You have to guard yourself against the lies, because those are the things that form your basis of reality. And that's, of course, going to form the basis. That's going to form the basis of your actions as well. And there's a really hard thing that when you get this far out and you realize that you are not really living in reality, that space right here between these two things can almost seem insurmountable. And a lot of people, when they discover that, just kind of shrug shoulders and go, screw it, and then they double down and they go further in that direction. And they go farther and farther away. And you don't want to be that person either. And so this is why sometimes it's important to hold on to the things in your life that you believe and the things that you feel with a loose fist. In other words, hold on to it, but not so tight that you're going to strangle it, and not so tight that you're incapable of letting go. Because you have to let go of things that you believe to replace them with things that turn out to be more true, closer to reality. Because I would think that maybe part of our goal is to get as close to this as possible. Close to that as possible. Now, for the devil to get you to do that, the best thing that they can do is to persuade you that they don't exist. That person I'm talking about earlier, the best thing that they can do is make me think that they're my friend. You've heard this before, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. That's the idea here. If the devil can persuade you he does not exist, then he can probably influence you and get you to do things that you otherwise wouldn't do. If your enemies can convince you that they're not really your enemies, they'll be close enough to you to see when you make a mistake, and then they'll be close enough to jump on it.
Russia and China.
What's that?
Russia and China.
Russia and China? No.
Ow.
Countries and people, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's just difficult because you also don't want to go through life looking around and thinking that everybody in your life is a devil. But stop me if you've heard this before. There are snakes in the garden.
Oh man.
Yeah, there are snakes in the garden.
Fight.
You have to be careful because they are around. You don't want to walk through the garden paranoid. But here's the thing. If you can cling to reality, cling to truth, then you understand what's the lie. I have an Apple Watch. If you came up to me and you had a watch and you go, hey Scallon, is this, and you hand me a watch, you go, is this an Apple Watch? Maybe this is a weird way of asking the question. How can I verify if your watch is an Apple Watch? What would be the easiest way, the fastest way maybe?
Compared to yours.
Yeah, compare the real thing to the one you just gave me. And I can look at it and go, no, it's different. Your watch has the dial a little bit further down. That means it's an off-brand. It's not the genuine article.
Oh my god.
If I've got the truth, I can compare things and ask myself, is what I'm being told, does that correspond to the truth? And this is why oftentimes people, when they want to manipulate you, will say, everything you've been told is a lie. What? They have to wipe that slate clean. That way there's no truth for you to compare what you're about to be told to. And once they can replace the real truth, the real reality, with a fictional reality, you aren't able to compare your watch to somebody else's. Because you can't trust if your watch is real anymore. So also be careful of people who come along and say that. Everything you've been told is a lie. I know that it's good clickbait. It's good clickbait. Clickbait. It's good clickbait when you see a YouTube video. Everything you've been told about blank is a lie. Why? Everything you've heard about such and such is not true. Be careful with that stuff, man, because even if you click on it, you're like, oh, it's just interesting. Sometimes those things have a way of seeping into your subconscious and we come to believe them. Yeah, and they come to you not as the devil, but by somebody who wants to. You've been lied to. I need to tell you the truth so that you know, because I care about you. Sounds like something the devil would say. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? I appreciate you still putting up with my absent voice. Yes, sir.